to Babble Over Brews, deep thoughts fermented over time and text. I'm coming at you, Aaron Crew Juice for Verka, and I've got Gumby.
Hey, what's up?
George.
Yo.
Mike.
Howdy.
And William.
Howdy.
We're going to be talking about Franklin Castle and Ohio history. But before we do that, we're going to sip some Ghost Ride. Technically, this
I didn't even
is...
catch that, Juice, when you said what the beer was.
Right?
God.
This is not a Kolsch beer because it was not brewed in the city of Cologne, Germany. It is fermented with a unique ale yeast that ferments out at cooler temperatures, many than other yeasts. So it doesn't produce as many free esters as many styles, but has complexities almost reminiscent of some white wines. The style is light-bodied, crisp, and refreshing, in part due to its extended cold aging / maturation process. It is a ABV of 4.7. On the bitterness scale, 25.
What's a Kolsch again? It's more like closely like to a lager, right?
Yeah, it's closer to a lager, yeah.
Right. I drink them, I just don't know what they are.
I was gonna say it's one of the best descriptions I've heard since we've been doing it. Like very, I don't know, it sounds super unique. So I'm excited to try it.
Let's find out. Here we go.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right, as it's pouring. Whoa, it is
This can is
crystal
awesome.
clear. Love the can. The artwork on these is amazing. This is by Revolution Brewing. And yeah, their cans are always phenomenal.
Anything has to be better than the last beer I brought.
What was the last beer?
I don't know, but he described it as wet dog. So
What was this?
I won't.
That is.
I mean, it's good. I would say my first sip, I'd say it's fine.
So it's.
Is it getting you anywhere, Mike?
It's super light. Like you could, I'm looking at Mike right through it. It's super light. It's as light as a pilsner, really.
Yeah, it's a real quenchy beer. I like that it doesn't have the fruit overtones and hints.
I'll tell you. What are you getting on the top?
Not there.
No. It's light. It's real light on the aroma. It's,
He's riding a bike, so it'll probably make for a good summer beer.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like a Bud Light. It's more full bodied than a Bud Light.
Fair.
Yeah, I think the description's right. It's almost like a white wine, right? It's real light. It's super light, really.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go good with fish.
Go good with a lot.
So I'm not gonna say I love this beer, but I would definitely drink several of these.
I don't hate it. I think if we were like all outside and it was like hot out and we were just sitting outside your garage crushing a 6-pack or something like that.
Yeah,
that'd be good,
exactly.
but, yeah.
I could drink this during yard work.
Unless, of course, they wanted to sponsor the show. In that case, man,
It's the world's
Yeah,
best.
4.7%. You probably could drink a lot of these.
Yeah.
And still be fine.
It's a good beer to have after you drink really good beer, you know?
That's a great description.
I tell you what I think, but you know what it tastes like? It tastes like beer and toothpaste because I just brushed my teeth after eating dinner before I came over here. I thought I drank enough water to get rid of the toothpaste and mouthwash flavor, and I didn't.
I like to brush my teeth and then drink orange juice.
Oh yeah, I love that. Oh my god, I look forward to that every morning. It's like nothing says love in like
gargle it.
toothpaste and mouthwash and orange juice in your mouth. Yeah, that's
Yeah, outside of that, it's not a bad beer. I'm enjoying it. It's a good beer.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to say it's phenomenal.
Okay.
It's fine.
It's
fine.
It's fine. It's fine
fine.
beer. It's
fine. It's fine. I'm
right.
fine.
There you go. That's it. Yep.
It does have a sweet, like if you don't drink it for 30 seconds, you do have a sweet aftertaste. I think it's above like Yingling.
Okay. That's fair.
So just
Fair.
out of the
Yeah, that's fair.
domestic,
Yeah.
it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
Fair.
It's
I
fine.
like it. I like it.
It's fine.
It's
You know,
my
like
style.
said,
I like real like neutral things, so I'm down with
It's
it.
fair.
We know what it's fine means. When females say that to the guys, it's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
it's not anti-hero.
Yeah, right. There you go.
It's not
There you go.
anti-hero.
I like
it's
it.
Good, but it's not anti-hero.
So, Mike, I haven't seen you in a while. Can we all just recognize how hot Mike looks with his beard and his thermal right now? Like,
Why are we on video?
He's got a trendy watch. He's got a trendy watch, right? Nice black band. right? Nice little thermal. He's been working out. Nice beard.
Yeah, he's got that Mark,
You guys be
Mark,
believers
Mark,
scared
Mark
to compliment?
Wahlberg look right now.
He does. He does.
My favorite moment of the podcast so far.
It's like the first time we've ever gotten along.
I love
no,
you.
we did once other second
He's
time.
setting you up, Mike.
Yes, yes, but I can't.
Building you up so I can tear you down.
So, William, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
So, Juice, does Bill have anything interesting going on that we should tell the listeners about?
This man always has something interesting going on. If you watch his feeds, my lord, he's always doing something.
Yeah. Some of them are a little bit more exciting than others. Like last night. Yeah, you probably saw that one. I'm not one of these people that takes pictures of food. Okay, I never do this.
It was a
But
good picture.
I did do this
should.
because this is something that it just needed to be shared with the rest of the world. So I have a friend, Sean Koltiska. He's got a stand down at the West Side Market. It used to be the old Sebastian's Meats. Now it says Sean's Meats on the thing, but it's Koltiska Meats. And he just took over the old would have been Kaufman's Poultry about 2 weeks ago.
I'm pretty sure I'm familiar.
Yeah. You would know the guy. So he's got veal, beef, pork, and then he's got a smoking section, as we call it. And downstairs he's got the spice lab. I call it the meth lab, and it's where all the magic happens down there with mixing this season and that season. So I threw an idea at him earlier this summer, and he's like, "Oh, that sounds interesting. We'll see if we can make that happen." So I didn't wait for that to happen. I just kind of took it home and made it happen myself. I told a friend of mine later this summer about it. When I told him what it was, the guy, he's a chef, he looked at me, he's like, "Yeah, nations are going to go to war over that one." So what it was he takes this slab of double smoked bacon, okay, the whole slab, and cut off a section, I'd say about an 1.5 to 2 inches thick, okay, and then you make it about 5 or 6 inches long, and you take it and you butterfly it, okay, and you open it up. Now you take stuffing, pork stuffing, and you take some bacon that you've already cut into small pieces and
Sounds good, doesn't
done
it,
in
Aaron?
in a skillet, and you add that to the pork stuffing, and then you stuff it inside of this piece of slab bacon, and then you wrap a few slices of bacon around the outside of that, and you pin it in, and you bake it for at 375 for about 40 minutes in a baking dish covered in foil, and
dish and a
you
bacon oven.
fill it, pull it out, put it in, and you finish it in a skillet. And you serve it up with a side of your choice of. I did a couple of fried eggs last night. You could do baked beans or something like that. What it is, and somebody said, "Well, you got to add more bacon to it." And I said, an aioli would be great because then it'd be bacon covered. So what it really is right now is bacon wrapped, bacon smoked, or bacon wrapped, bacon. Wait. I think about it. It's bacon wrapped, bacon stuffed bacon.
There we go.
Is what it is. Now, if we did the bacon aioli, it would be bacon wrapped, bacon covered, bacon stuffed bacon. But as it is,
Eat
it's
with
just
like a
bacon
bacon
wrapped,
fork.
bacon stuffed bacon.
could eat it.
So
Well, as
So-
Jeff again said, I'm sure after you bit into it, there was a time warp of you going back in time, right?
yeah, there was this moment where I sat there. I'm like, hey, back at the West Side Market when I was 5 years old, and this tear welled up in my eye, and I was like, oh, this just reminds me of the best smells on earth. And I had some friends over last night, and they're like, what is that smell? It smells amazing. So I'm like, it smells like bacon, and they're like, yeah. I'm like, and I told them what there was, and they're like, Asians are going to go to war over that. And I said, yeah, I know, I heard that. Yeah. So this is now a thing. So he's going to probably start carrying that pre-made and ready to go, and just you can buy them over there and take them home. So that was, I don't take pictures of food, but I had to take a picture of that and post it on
you
Facebook
should.
because
Take
I'm like,
pictures of food more often, man. Let the world know.
your eyes are not deceiving you. Yes, this really happened. This is what this is. And then I got a lot of help from my brother's fiance. He's like, do I have to give you Cheerios every morning too for your heart? And my dad's like-
Cholesterol, right?
my dad's like, yeah, you know what, boys, you know what the Zipper Club looks like. I've been a member for many years. So and I'm like, Dad, I eat healthy. I eat fruits and vegetables too. So, but yeah, I had to share that. But yeah, there's always things happening though. Yes, that was just like the most recent crazy thing that just sort of happened though.
I love it.
So do you have a kosher version of that?
Yeah, it's not bacon wrapped, not bacon smoked, not bacon covered
Turkey
bacon.
bacon.
It's
Turkey.
tofurkey bacon.
I'm not asking for myself. It's for Gumby.
This would be seitan wrapped, seitan covered, seitan stuffed seitan. I'm sure there's a way we can make that happen.
So I have this question for you. You take me off as being like super like, I don't know if this is a word, but I'm gonna say Clevelandy.
Yeah.
You're super Clevelandy. Yeah, like I just like I look at you, I'm like that guy's from in Cleveland. Man.
Definitely
Like, he
a
knows the
Clevelander.
stories. He knows like all the streets. He knows all the those dive bars and hidden secrets and everything like that. How long have you been living in Ohio City for a long time?
Only on Ohio City for the. This is my 5th winter where I'm living right now. I was born in Cleveland over at Deaconess Hospital up the road here.
Me too.
You too? Yeah. It was a great hospital. It was really great. And unfortunately, in 1990, when I got bit by my cat and I went there in the emergency room, I waited an hour. And they didn't even ask me what was wrong. And so we went to Metro, and I was admitted within 5 minutes for blood poisoning because I almost died. So the hospital was shut down shortly after. But yeah, I was born over at Deaconess up the road. I lived on 73rd and Clark until I was about a year and a half old. Then we moved to Avon Lake. So but my grandparents lived in Cleveland. My dad's parents lived in Cleveland. My mom's parents lived over here in Parma on Keystone. So I've always been spending time in Cleveland. And then 2006, I moved to Cleveland and then over to Lakewood. And then about 5 years ago, I moved into Ohio City. But yeah, I was always spending as much time in Cleveland. Dad, mom, me, my brother, sister, they'd always take us into town, watch see the Christmas lights on Public Square, drive around and see
It's
all
the place to be.
It is.
What do you think about like the last like 6-7 years, man? Like, I mean, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the casino, maybe. I don't know. But something in the last, because I lived downtown my first time probably like 10, 11 years ago. And I remember like, it was like a ghost town. Like at like 4 or 5 o'clock, there'd be no traffic because no one worked there. And like, you could just run around like, you didn't have to wait for traffic or anything. And now, there's like, you go there, it's like a rush hour. There's people directing traffic. It's nuts. But
that's it. A lot of it had to do with 1995. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think, was a big kickstart. And then in the early getting the Browns back and the new stadium and the Gateway Complex in the mid 1990s was a great thing. See, I graduated from high school in 1994, and I went to college in Pittsburgh for 3 years immediately afterwards.
That's not very. I deduct you 2, maybe 3 Cleveland points for that.
Yeah, well, no, here's the great thing, because I got to see a little bit as a still teenager and approaching my early 20s. I got to see not just Pittsburgh, of course, but I went to like Frederick, Maryland, and I got to travel around a little bit during this time, and I got to see what other cities were doing. And Pittsburgh in the early 1990s, late 80s, they had gone through a renaissance. Cleveland was on the verge of going through a renaissance, and it took a little bit of time, but it took the Gateway project for it to happen.
Maybe you were like a mole.
I got to kind of see it.
Yeah, I was let them know you were.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, guess what,
hey,
Cleveland? Pittsburgh is beating our butts here as far as. So yeah, I got to see this. So this was great. And then when it started happening to Cleveland, we started having a renaissance with the downtown. Now, unfortunately, this did come at a cost of some really cool neighborhoods did get kind of jacked and quote unquote gentrified, whatever you want to call that. And I don't like that. Like with a couple of neighborhoods, they could have done it a little bit better. But then the worst one is I look at what happened to the East Bank of the Flats. I'm not going to knock the East Bank of the Flats or the West Bank.
It's a different feel, though. It's like everything's an Applebee's down there.
But that's the part that bothered me is I really love the old. Like the Have a Nice Day Cafe, Fagan's, Flagship of the Flats.
These were great places.
Oh yeah, you did. Oh,
Trilogy,
yeah, you did.
and I think Trilogy is still there, just not open anymore, obviously, or whatever. It became Metropolis or
Banana Joe's.
I don't know.
That was a great place.
But we still do have some great places. I don't really go over to the East Bank of the Flats like I used to. Like I hang over the West Bank, and there are some places I'll still go to, like the Harbor Inn,
in Ohio, right?
Yeah, not the oldest bar. Not that the 1895 thing's a legend. Okay, that's a myth. That's not really true.
I was just there,
1930s,
and they told me that. Are they lying?
Yeah, no. The last owner, I think he made up the number. It's interesting because 1895 is the same year I think that appears on this sign outside of Cheers. On the thing, so they're like, oh no, it's really 1888. We just kind of made up the 1895 thing when Carla was into her like whole numerology thing. No, it was 1935.
I feel hustled now. I was like, wow, this is really cool.
In fact, the building itself didn't exist until about 1912, and it was an office for a foundry that was down there. But they're like, oh, no, there used to be another place called the Harbor, and that was up the road, and the guy bought it, and he just transferred the name when they started building the bridge. It's like, no, I found the article from 1935 or 1936, and the guy's like, I just wanted something that made people remember that they're close to the water, so I came up with Harbor, and he was a foreigner, and he's like, and it was they've just lifted prohibition in United States, so I bought this building, and I say, okay, fine, I call it Harbor, and it sounds like, and I'm reading this article and I'm laughing because at the time it was Wally Bazorn still owned the place, and it's who he had bought it off of. And I think Wally is the one that really kind of propagated the whole, oh no, they tore down a place called and it's the oldest bar. Well, no, the place that is really I guess technically the oldest family owned bar in Cleveland, 1919, is Hote's Cafe over in Tremont, and I was down there earlier.
Which one is it?
Hote's, and it's over on
Hote's
Tremont. Yeah, Hote's in Tremont, 1919.
Well, I need to go.
Yeah,
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah,
I knew you'd be good for this.
Mr. Hote's
right
bought the
there.
place in June of 1919, and it says 30 days from the title transfer that they're to take it over. So it's like July 22nd of 1919. They took over the building, and it had been a bar since about 1887, consistently. Now, during Prohibition, it was used as a barber shop,
Right.
but it was really a speakeasy. They did maintain the bar. They just had, I heard stories that they had all the alcohol in a crate, and that when the guys were coming up the road and they would stop at the bars up the street, someone would run ahead and let them know, and they would, or call ahead, and they would go and they'd give it this kid that lived next door, and the kid would throw it in a box in the garden next door, and they'd throw it in the box, and they close the lid, and they pull dirt over top of it and bury it and keep it hidden until these guys stopped and made sure that they were just really cutting hair in the bar.
Right.
So that the Hote's is really the one of the oldest bars in Cleveland. But right up the road is Carney's, right over there on the west bank of the Flats. Is one of my favorite places to go down over there on the west bank of the Flats is Carney's also. But yeah, we're Cleveland. We have a number of wonderful establishments. I only named 3 of them.
I mean, I could go on and on too. Yeah, there's some great places.
Yeah.
But I'm nervous for Ohio City now that you say it. Like, there's a lot of apartment buildings, man. A lot of young people are gonna come, and it's gonna change everything. I mean, there's so much new living space.
Yeah, well, and you know what? I don't know if they would be changing things for the better or for the worse. They'll be changing.
True, I guess
them
you don't know until we
probably,
cross that bridge.
I mean,
but I'm
look
nervous.
what might be happening. They're talking about possibly starting the first working hyperlink in the United States, going from Cleveland to Chicago. That was the original plan. You could be
Didn't
in.
our governor shut it down because of big money?
No, not yet. No, it's still a possibility, but you could work in Chicago and live in Cleveland, and Cleveland would now all of a sudden become a suburb of Chicago because the commute time is about 42 minutes.
Wow.
And I keep thinking, I scratch my head up, well, plus whatever time it takes for you to drive to the hyperlink and then Uber from the hyperlink to wherever you're working, so maybe an hour. But it's like, yeah, wherever that's going to start and stop, I keep scratching my head and saying, I think we're on the cusp of good times ahead of us. I'd like to see something like that because it's a two-way street. Not only is it taking people living in Cleveland and working in Chicago, it's taking people from Chicago out to Cleveland.
Yeah.
So we'll get it. And what are we known for here in Cleveland besides the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and a river that catches on fire? Beautiful lakefront. They got that in Chicago, but what else are we known for?
Beer.
Breweries. We got a bunch right there in the Ohio City neighborhood. Here's to the breweries of Cleveland, gentlemen.
We have some great ones.
You hear that, DeWine? Keep things open so we can get a hyperlink.
We're gonna, this podcast is going to be a speakeasy podcast next week.
I was gonna say, remember that tip, because if COVID restrictions get worse, we might have to use it, man.
I propose that we as a podcast next summer go over to Put in Bay.
Oh, yeah, please. Yeah, come over.
I'll be belligerently drunk. There's zero chance of me doing anything else.
So you're saying it would be a fun podcast?
Or the worst podcast ever.
That would be. I just encourage everyone to say, come over earlier in the day and do the touristy stuff that doesn't involve drinking right off the bat. Stop and have a couple drinks, of course, but go see the caves, go see the lighthouse, come see the monument, go to the top. Don't put anything on the ledge. Don't throw any rocks over the side. Stop spitting over the side. That's a long story for another time. That's my job up there. Is mostly entails things like, hey, don't put your kid on the ledge. It's stuff like that. But Yes, drive around, go or get a bike or go kayaking or paddle boarding. Rent some jet skis from Bob and Andrea. Go do something fun. Just go enjoy yourself. Maybe go to Middle Bass and go check out JF Walleyes or something. But enjoy yourself. But then in the evening, maybe start hitting some of the bars. Go hear some music, live entertainment. That's one of the best things about that island. You're gonna hear some guys up there. You're gonna hear everyone all clustered together that you would have to wait. Like, oh, I heard West Side Steve's playing this weekend, and next weekend Bob Gatewood's playing, and then the weekend after that there's Pat Shepard playing. You got to wait like a week to hear these guys. No, Put-in Bay, you can hear everybody within 10 minutes of each other.
At the same time.
Was it hurting this year though?
It was. We did have a few places that scaled back on music, which was unfortunate but understandable. Because of a limited seating capacity, and it wasn't worth it for a lot of the places to bring up the musicians, because normally they would be at full capacity, and that would justify paying the musicians. Sorry, I keep hitting the cord. I don't know if that's affecting the thing. So I know that West Side Steve didn't do his big end of the season show. He did play at the end of the season, but he didn't do his big party that he does every year. Pat Shepard, I think, only played 1 or 2 shows over at the Frosty Bar this year. If you've not heard him, he does Pat Daly to a T. Who's the guy that created the Put-in Bay sound, or really made it what it is. And then Mike Mad Dog Adams didn't come up and play anything this year, so he's got some health issues. So this was a concern for him. So I don't think he played anywhere, which was unfortunate, because last year he celebrated 40 years playing at Put-in Bay.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this year he didn't play at all. So he's the one that he's the king of the roundhouse, call him. And he's the guy that raise your drinks, raise them high, ziggy 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 ziggy, hoy hoy hoy. He's the guy that does that at his shows. So he's the one that gets us all ziggy zagging at least once a year. So it's an island tradition to go see him. So we did hang on to our traditions, like lighting the whiskey light at the roundhouse and then turning it off at the end of the season. So a lot of things are, of course, though, scaled back. They didn't do the road races reunion. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We didn't do a lot of the stuff for the Perry historic weekend. So there were a lot of things peeled back there too. But otherwise, I think we all had a good year, though, up at Put-in Bay. But definitely come up, and they have their own brewery, so you can go through the entire list of everything that they make there. You can drink the Old Cotton Top Irish Red. You can drink a West Shore IPA, and
that sounds like
give
a
your
challenge.
opinions on it. They also do their own alcohol. They do their own hard stuff. They are also the island's only distillery. We do have a beverage center. It's not an actual, so you can get 40 proof over there. Okay, so if you want to get 80 proof anywhere, you got to go to the brewery/distillery, and they've got Island rum and Island vodka, and they're very good.
We definitely have to go.
Please,
I got a question for you, Bill.
fire away, bud.
It's Friday the 13th.
It is. Oh God, yeah, that's right.
I hear you stay at a pretty cool place.
Dun, dun, dun.
I'd love
do.
to know how that happened, why that happened, and what cool stories you have there.
Oh, so many cool stories.
And your philosophies behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the way this happened was back when. Back when I was about, we'll go way back. Okay, first the Earth cooled, then the dinosaurs came. They got too big and fat and turned into oil. And
We already had a podcast on all that.
airplane, I love that.
Get us started.
George didn't believe any of it.
So what happened was I was about 5 years old. So we were taking the long way back to Avon Lake from my grandparents' house in Cleveland, and as we were heading north on 41st to 44th, and we stopped at the intersection of 44th and Franklin. We're outside this very cool looking stone house right across the intersection. And my dad looks over and says, "Hey kids," and we're all, me and my brother Tom and my sister Jennifer, we're all in the car, and Dad's like, "Hey kids, look, that's a real haunted house." And my jaw just about hit the bottom of the floor and just what? And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So I would always say, hey, let's take the long way home. What? I'm like, I want to see that house again. okay, fine. And I'm like, so after a number of years, I'm like, I'm going to live there one day. And my parents are like, yeah, let us know when you hit the lottery and you can share that up with us. So I became so interested in this house. Firstly, because my father had said, that's a real haunted house. My dad never said anything like that. That just blew my mind, for him to even
Dad said something
imply.
cool for once, right?
Yeah, I'm like, because he never said anything.
only time I
He
listened.
never talked about that. Hell, he never even talked about Jesus or God or anything beyond the scope of what we can see in front of us. It was, don't touch that. Don't do that. No, put that down. No, stop it. Like he caught me coloring on the wall one time with a crayon, and he's like, "What is this? What is this?" And my answer was, "It's green." And well, yeah, okay, it's green. It is. At least the kid knows his colors. Bad news is he's grounded for a week. So as time went on, though, I really was interested in this house. And around 1992, I was in high school at this point, and we had to do a project for one of my classes. And I said, well, it was a speech on some historic subject. So I'm like, I want to do a speech on the history of the Franklin Castle. So I started doing a little bit of research into it. Took some pictures of the house. Found out who had built the house and went out to where they're buried and found out a little bit of information about them. And I gave this great, speech in my speech writing class in 92. And I kept finding out more and more about it as I went on. So to the point that every now and then a little bit more information would fall into my lap. Oh, that's cool, and add that to a file. And, oh, there's a newspaper article. That's great. Okay. Or it would be on PM Magazine, an old show that used to be on Channel 8. And I was like, that was when I was really young, before I started doing the research. But I remember all this stuff, and there would be written about in one or two books. And then in 2000, I had started a new job. I started sailing on the Great Lakes on a freighter as a merchant marine, and I did that for the next 5 years. So in 2005, I let my ticket lapse, and I didn't want to sail again. I had a girlfriend prior to that who cheated on me, and it was because I was never home. I can't say I blame her entirely. But after that had happened, I realized there were certain things in my life that I wanted to happen that are not going to happen because I'm sailing. Like getting married or having a family or anything like that. And if I'm always gone, that's not going to happen. So I let my ticket lapse, and I said, that's it. I'm done sailing. And I moved back to Avon Lake. So my brother at the time was dating somebody, and her and a friend and my brother, they bought me a ticket for the Haunted Cleveland tour. And we went to a number of places, and one of the places on this tour was the Franklin Castle. And they had some great information on it, but they were off on a little bit of information. So I started talking to Beth, who was the host of the tour, and eventually got to be friends with her and Chuck. They're the ones that own it. And when I was talking to Beth, I said, "Well, this is right. You're dead on that, but this one's not true, and this part also is not quite true." She's like, "Hey, would you be interested in writing something for us? Maybe correcting our notes?" Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be great. So a few days later, I ended up over at the Western Reserve Historical Society. And I requested anything they might have on the castle, and they brought me one newspaper article in a file folder. I'm like, really? This is all you have? And they're like, yeah. They're like, what's your interest in it? And I said, well, just personal interest, but also the Haunted Cleveland tour. I was talking to Beth, the host, and I told her I'd write something on it, and I was hoping you guys had a little bit more than this, because I actually have more than this at home. And they're like, oh, well, maybe when you're done, you'd be interested in writing something for us. And I said, oh, sure, okay, I'd love to. So about 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I'm down at the county archives on Franklin, right up the road from the castle. And while I'm there, at this point, I've been working on it for about a week up there, and I'm making copies of this and that, and I'm finding little side stories. There are books that actually have articles in them about that were written currently with the time the house was built, about the family that lived there or people that are related to them or whatnot. And while I'm doing this research, I'm like, well, I need to make a photocopy, and I go to use a photocopier, and I open it up, and there are some legal documents in there, and I pull them out, and I turn to Glinda, who ran the archives. I said, Glinda, somebody left some. She's like, oh, that's Mr. Myers. He's in the other room. And I'm like, no, I'll take him over to him. I didn't want to bother her. She was talking to somebody, and Mr. Myers, and he's like, oh, yes, this older fellow. And I'm like, here, you left these in the copier. He's like, oh, thank you. And as I'm handing them to him, I'm like, whoa, hold on. And I look at him, and it is the last will and testament of Hannes Tiedemann.
Oh,
The man who built the Franklin Castle.
Wow.
And I looked at him and said, you're working on the Franklin Castle. And he was a little taken aback. And he's like, yeah, well, yeah, kind of. And I'm like, it's okay. I'm working on the exact same thing right now. And we eventually opened up to each other and decided we would pool our resources, work with each other to help each other out with what he was doing it for his own personal interest. Okay. I was doing it now to write something for hopefully Haunted Cleveland Tour and also hopefully Western Reserve Historical Society. So we started getting together weekly, going over things that we had found and sharing, making doubles of everything. So we each had a copy. And then he threw out the idea. He's like, let's go a step beyond this. Let's write a book. And it was his idea to write a book. Yeah, it's a great idea, because I had already written a couple of books, nothing published. And so we did. We pooled our resources and we started writing this book. Now, we pitched it to pretty much every publisher out there, and everybody rejected us. It was way too long. It was way too involved. And then the house sold to somebody else. But along the way, it was great because we tracked down the descendants of Hannes and Louise Tiedemann, who built the castle. I got to be friends with quite a few of them, who were also very forthcoming with family letters and articles and photos. A fountain of information. The photos that nobody had ever seen. Now, the house is supposedly haunted by a woman in black and a girl in white, believed to be the wife and daughter of Hannes Tiedemann, Louise and Emma Tiedemann. Emma did not die in the house, but she died in the first house that stood there in 1881. She was only 15. She's regarded as the girl in white. And her mother, Louise, is a woman in black. We had photos of them. Multiple photos that had never been seen by anybody. So we had this great tome of involved literature, everything, that accounts of the family that grew up there, people that lived there afterwards. We interviewed, tracked down people that lived there, and where they're no longer living, we tracked down their descendants. They gave us so much. It was incredible. But the book sort of got shelved. And I went on to go write, of course, these mystery novels that I started off with, and then Buried Beneath Cleveland got picked up, and then I was writing Haunted Put-in-Bay. Well, while this was all going down, and had since gotten married, since gotten divorced, was living at Put-in-Bay, working there during the summers, was living back in Cleveland in the winters. In 2015 or 16, I got contacted by a friend of mine, Jim DeBelco, who's a Cleveland historian, and he wrote me and said, "Hey, I was recently contacted by the new owners of the Franklin Castle. They want to know if they can meet with you." Asked him why, and he explained they're doing work on the house and they hit a wall. Literally hit a wall. While they were digging in the backyard to install a utility line, they hit a stone wall in the backyard and they didn't know what it was. So they reached out to Jim DeBelco, who had written a great article for the Cleveland Historical app and website, and he was one of the ones that's seriously wrote about the history of the house and talked about the Wolvertons who built the first house there, and really didn't go too much into the haunting of the Franklin Castle as much as he did the history. So they reached out to him first and said, "Hey, do you know what this might be?" He says something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing, "No, but I have an idea who would, and it's the guy who gave me all the information that I used for the article, and it was me." And so he said, "Can I invite him over?" And they said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So he reached out to me. They reached out to me. I took a day off work, came over, and we looked at this stone wall in the backyard, and we determined ultimately that it was the foundation of the first house that was on the site, and it was built by the Wolvertons in 1860, and it was a house called a Bachelor's Hall, is what they had called it in a letter. Whether or not that was the actual name of it, they said we were keeping Bachelor's Hall, which was a term used for a place that the boys would live by themselves. But their father's house was called Wolverton Hall, so I'd say that it was called. So that's what it was. So the owners asked me if I'd be interested in seeing the restoration so far. I said, love to. So they start walking me through, and while we're going through and they're showing me, they're doing this fantastic work. I'm showing them where some walls were, and they're like, yeah, we know that, and we know that. I said, well, this room used to be this person's room. This was that. This used to be here. There used to be a trapdoor here. This one between the floors. This was here. This was over here, and I've got photos of this, and I've got some hardware from, and this was given to me by a past owner, and I've got these photos and that. So they were really. So by the end of it, felt like I was giving them a tour of their own house. They said, "Look, we're finishing up an apartment or part of the house. It's going to be a separate suite from the rest of the house on the back half of the third floor." They're like, "We don't know what you do during the winter months, but we know you work at Put in Bay. But would you be interested in perhaps living here? We could use somebody of your talent who's a walking encyclopedia of this house. We get hit up with a lot of people. They ask us questions when we're working in the yard. We really don't have time. We're very busy, but we could really use somebody who can really share this with visitors, anybody that comes over." And they're like, "Would you be interested in taking up residency?" And again, just like when I was 5 years old, my jaw just about hit the floor. I was better at containing myself this time, and I said, "Yeah, sure, I would. That would be an honor." And it really was. And they might as well have looked at me and said, "Hey, here's $10 million. Would you like $10 million?" Because it was the same effect on me. Was how this was a dream to actually be in this house and living here and being able to share on a regular basis this story with a lot of people. So when they do have visitors, or even when I'm blowing leaves in the front yard, or doing something, or cleaning up, or doing something, mowing the lawn, or even when I'm leaving and going to my car and there are groups of people outside and they flag me down for a second, they ask me questions about it, of course I'm going to sit there and I'm going to answer them. I love sharing this story and telling them what's true, what's not, but leaving a little bit of mystery, of course. So I don't give away all the secrets of the castle. Because there are some great secrets it holds. So it's a fantastic story that I get to share. So I've been there now for this is my 5th winter living there, and it is a beautiful house. And I love the fact that I get to help out the owners with in any way that I can. They ask me if I could do this, or they say, "Hey, can you check on that?" And it's an honor to be a part of it and be involved in any way, shape, or form with it. When I told my parents that I was moving in, they're like, "Yeah, sure, okay." And so I did move in, and then I had them over for Thanksgiving dinner about a month and a half later, and they're like, or about a month later, and they're like, "Yeah, you're really living here." And my dad just kind of started laughing. He's like, "I can't believe I'm actually having Thanksgiving dinner in the Franklin Castle."
That's crazy.
So he's like, "How's the turkey woman in Black Dress?"
Well, ask her. She's the one that cooked it. So, so it was it's been a real adventure being there, and I love the fact that I was invited to be a part of their household and to along the way share this great story. So ultimately, we did finish the book, John and I, and we did the final edits at the house. There is a glassed-in room on the second floor, and it is original to the house. It's all trimmed out in wood with crystal glass, and this was Hannes Tiedemann's office. And so I put a big old desk in there that I think came from the old Sohio building. It was my ex-sister-in-law's from years ago, but yeah, so I ended up with this desk, and we moved it in there, and we put it in there. It's still in there today, and that's where we finished all the edits, word for word, on the book about the Franklin Castle and about Hannes Tiedemann in his office in the Franklin Castle. So it was very surreal finishing this book in that office. So that was a great feeling.
Epic.
Yeah,
Just reminds me of Supernatural when they're in the bunker.
Yes.
I
Doing
love
all
that
the
show.
research
Men
and
of
writing.
Letters.
Yes, Men of Letters.
There's a great Gore Orphanage episode of that show. If you haven't seen it, yeah, you probably
I've
have.
watched the whole series. I
Yeah.
love Supernatural.
I think as I understand it now, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the creators or the writers are from Ohio and they're from the area.
Yes.
So they
Yeah,
okay, they
the
are
writers,
okay, yeah.
Some of the writers are, yeah.
Wow.
So that's how little things from Ohio end up in their Gore Orphanage.
You know what's
and whatnot.
hilarious? If you watch, I think is it the second to last episode of last season? As they're driving away from the house, if you pause that episode and look at the license plate, it's an Ohio license plate.
Oh, it's an Ohio license plate on the car in every episode. That's their.
But I mean,
yeah.
like it fills the screen.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
like as they're driving up, like it's blatant, it's big, it's like Ohio. It's like there we go.
You wanna
So, real quick, before we move on to this next part of this titillating story, here's a word from our sponsors.
Have you ever wanted to train Muay Thai? Perhaps there's no gyms near you. Perhaps you work odd hours. Perhaps, like a few of us, you don't like germs. Whichever way it goes, you can train online with some of the best instructors from around the country, either live or in class with other students. Living Muay Thai gives you the chance to do all of this and much more. So jump into live classes and on demand right now. livingmuaythai.com.
And we're back. And we're going to be starting with Russian Imperial Stout. Now, this one is actually called Dark Apparition.
Oh, juicer.
Because after we are recording on Friday the 13th.
It is.
Scary.
Friday the 13th.
Super scary.
So, 7 malts were used to create deep flavor of coffee, chocolate, caramel,
Seven's
and
a scary number,
molasses.
too.
A hint of bitterness and herbal character from carefully selected European and American hops help support the monolithic maltiness. A truly decadent brew that is intended to be poured into your favorite snifter and given time to warm up from its dark and cool resting place. This is an ABV of 10.5.
Yeah, only half will do.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I think we drank some water.
We did. You
The guy
did.
drunk some water.
Wow. Now, this is definitely darker. I wouldn't say it's as dark as some of our previous ones, but I can't see Mike through it.
That's true.
It's not super heady. It has a very minimal head
lot
on
there.
the top.
Still some in there.
I can't remember if it was a dark beer. Which was it? Like, it was like my 3rd or 4th episode when we were all hammered, blitzed.
That's what the ones that Mike brought.
Was it a dark beer?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he brought ones that were both exceeding 10%.
Thank you, Noble Beast.
Is that it? All right.
But on the top,
Show's been banned from YouTube.
it does have a, I don't know, like a darkish smell to it, almost. I'd say chocolate, maybe a roasted chocolate smell.
Yeah, I'm with you on the roasted chocolate.
Yeah.
You can feel it in the roof of your mouth.
I like it. I like it right out of the can.
No, the flavor's great. That's definitely a stout.
But I really like stouts.
Yeah, that's definitely a stout, and it does have that crisp stout flavor from the lactose. You can taste it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is what makes it like an imperial stout, right? So
Did you Google that or did you actually pick that up?
no,
Just go with
do you see this? Do you see it anywhere right there? There's the description. Do you see it anywhere? there?
I'm not saying that it's there right now. I'm just saying, did you actually pick up on the lactose sharpness of it, or
Yeah, that's a thing. that is,
No,
that's
you
a
could
thing.
taste
Your
it. Why
mom's a
can't
thing.
you? Can't you taste
Wait.
it? George?
Oh, you're not vegan yet?
No,
Okay.
no. I had,
oh, that
I
would
had-
be breaking.
I had to pretend to be one for the show.
I got you.
Oh,
I mean, we did just
Right,
eat
right.
pizza.
That's true. That's true.
That is true. Wow.
This is a very dark beer.
It is. It has a
This is
buttery flavor.
Oh,
Yeah, what are you thinking? You like
buttery.
it?
Yes, butter. Yeah, it's got a buttery flavor. This is darker than
Yeah.
the dead baby jokes that we are not allowed to tell at work. Ew.
And it's almost like a slight brown sugary flavor on the back end.
Almost like a molasses flavor to it. Almost. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is good. I like it. It's almost nutty, right? So it's got like a nutty like overtone to it.
It's still smooth enough for me.
It's more smooth. When I hear coffee, beer, I'm not usually a fan. This I could go for. This is pretty good.
Doesn't
It's
hit
a
you as
slow.
hard.
It's a slow sipping beer for me, but it's good.
it's tasty.
Which is good. It fits the dark mood of the day.
Ooh.
Friday the 13th
So anyway,
with Bill.
where were we, Bill?
We were at license plates and Supernatural.
That's
I think,
right.
when we went, we had alluded to gore orphanage a little bit, but Yeah, Franklin Castle, though, if you guys want to continue in that stream. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a fantastic house. It's beautifully being restored wonderfully by the owners. Now, unfortunately, 21 years ago, November of 1999, the house was hit by an arsonist, which I won't go into great detail. I don't want to talk too much about that. The reasons behind what happened, that's between the person that did it. And that's personal to them. And I won't even say his name or how that all happened. Also because I don't want to give him any notoriety either, and I hope he's okay. But the house was severely damaged afterwards, and a lot of the historic architectural detail was sadly lost along the way. So what could be saved was saved. Say that right now. And then what was beyond saving, there was nothing anybody could do about that, and that was lost. But the owners did do a lot of wonderful work, though, in putting into the house a lot of architectural details that you might have found in a house of that era, or specifically, see, the Tiedemans also had a second house out in Lakewood that was built right about the same time, just before, honestly. And these are a lot of the details you would have found also out in the house out in Lakewood. They brought those things into Cleveland, into the house in Cleveland, and they blended the two styles because we have a lot of woodwork in the house, beautiful East Lake style details and a lot of the woodwork and the fireplaces, and they incorporated those into some new woodwork, and they put in a few new bookcases with the same details. The floors are a beautiful white oak and black walnut inlay, and they have things like the flowers are black walnut inlays, and the floor that you see up in the corners of the doorways. So they brought those in as well, those wonderful features. So they
I will
really
say
did
that when I was there with you, the detail was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, the floors were amazing. Even the hinges.
Yeah,
The hinges
know.
themselves were they're so decorative.
And those are original. That's East Lake style. And those hinges were made in 1881 to 1883 by Brantford Lockworks Company of Brantford, Connecticut, as were the doorknobs. Now, some of the other pieces of hardware came from another company that was there for also out of Connecticut. That seemed to have been the foundry location for this artistic movement called the American East Lake movement. But yeah, so but those were all made by Brantford Lockworks, and they're fantastic. So but those are original. A lot of what you see in there is original. I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Tiedemann family, any relationship to the Tiedemann Road?
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, Tiedemann Road used to be called Parma Road originally, and Hannes, what lame Parma, lame? Are you kidding me?
They call it
Where's the
AMRAP.
bell?
Yeah, AMRAP Road. Yeah, Parma Road. It was a generic name because oh boy, here's original idea. It went to Parma. Yeah. Oh, so. It was originally called Parma Road. Believe it or not, Tiedemann Road is misspelled.
Oh, wow.
There's supposed to be two N's on the
Yes.
end of the
I
name.
noticed that.
Yeah,
because
I hate humans.
Reading through things like your
Hate 'em
book,
so much.
right? It has the proper spelling on it. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on, the road's wrong.
The road is wrong. The road is absolutely wrong. What had happened was the road is named after the same family. See, in 1848, Hannes Tiedemann, who would have the castle built some years later, he and his wife, it was his older brother. He came over with now those are the Wolvertons. Are we on like a live camera or any sort of stream? Oh, okay. Oh, so no, your listeners can't. They're not viewers either.
No.
Okay, all right.
They'll have to see things through our voices.
So just imagine
But they can buy your book online. And
they
find
can
these.
they can find these photos online. So imagine 4 guys with beards and 1 guy with sideburns sitting in a garage space over pizza and beer, and we're looking at a monitor right now. So those are the Wolvertons. They're the ones that built the house prior to it. So Tiedemann Road though. When Hannes Tiedemann came over here, he came over with 2 older brothers, Klaus and Ludwig, and then 3 sisters, Katharina, Rebecca Elise, and Louisa, and their widowed mother, Wiebke. Now, their father had passed away, unfortunately, about 1.5 years earlier, Christmas Eve of 1846, going into 47. So he had passed. He was the village blacksmith. So they come over here. And on the way to the United States, on the Danish brig Manon, which was the vessel they were sailing on. Their older sister, the eldest of the three girls, Katharina, had met a man named Henning Bolton. There's Klaus. Henning Bolton was traveling for his health. And on getting to the United States, some sort of a romance must have occurred between the two of them because they made it. Originally, the Tiedemans were bound for Wisconsin, where a number of Germans were heading. They only made it as far as Cleveland, and in Cleveland, 2 weeks after arriving in the United States, Katharina and Henning got married here in Cleveland, and here in Cleveland they stayed. And then a few days later, Henning Bolton died.
Wow.
Ouch.
He died from tuberculosis. He had,
Who didn't die from
at the time they called it
tuberculosis?
consumption. So he was traveling for his health. He had been sick for a long time. Apparently, it's not one of those things that creeps up on you and you die the next day.
Right.
This is something that you have for a little while. So he was traveling. He was consumptive. And he left, of course, everything to his wife. Well, everything went from his wife to her oldest brother to their mother, Wiebke, who on the very same day that Henning Bolton died, she bought many, many acres in what's now Lindale, Ohio.
Oh, the speed trap.
The speed trap on the freeway. That's the one. I'm like, that is such a small town. It's only large enough to put a speed trap in. Of course, there's much more to it up the hill. Yes, it does. My cousin, Matt Mahan, was, and my other cousin, they were both cops there. It's another story for another time. They didn't bust people for things
sure
like
they're
that.
really cool.
They were not like that. Yeah, it's a terrible story, honestly. So within less than a few months, their mother, Wiebke, owns multiple acres in what's now, it's on the same day that Henning Bolton died. She gave her mother all this money. She bought this huge farm, and then she sold it to Klaus Tiedemann, the eldest of the brothers, and eventually he bought adjoining acreage in the months that follow. He did marry a woman who was a daughter of one of the neighbors, farmers, the Baumgarts, and that was Emily, and they ended up starting their own family. Now, in the early 1870s, they went and they bought a house down the road, and it was on the Parma Road, and it had previously been built by a man named Patrick McPhillips. And that house is still standing today, but they would spend the rest of their lives there after they sold their original farm to Mr. Lynn and his company, and that's how it became Lindale. Now, Joe Lynn would ultimately default on that, and they got the land back, threw everyone out, but eventually it did become Lindale anyway. But he bought the McPhillips house over on what is now Tiedemann Road, and the next number of generations were raised in that house. And the house is still standing on the east side of what's now Tiedemann Road, but it is misspelled because the descendants of them still spell it with two N's on the end of the name. There was a misspelling on a land map from 1874, which only used one N, and that's how the name of the road came to be.
See, I was gonna say there was no Google back then. So I mean, if you were filling out the paperwork,
Yeah,
to
no,
send
you
it,
couldn't-
and you just had to guess. Was it? Hey, Juice, was it one N or two N's? I can't remember. Yeah, it was one. The one. It was one.
Right. But you would think, let's go through the titles and say, oh, well, here's the title. Hey, it has two N's.
The title is probably like a 2-day horse ride away.
Their tombstone even has two N's on it, and even their descents. And I'm friends with a few of them. A couple that gave us use of these two photos, and they're still in the family. Tim and Corey walked, and they're like, no, it's two N's. And I'm friends with a descendant who still has last name Tiedemann, and she lives in southern Ohio, and it's Kim Tiedemann. And she showed up at the castle. She's like, my great-grandfather built this house. And I'm like, I think you're a little too young to be a great-grandchild of Hannes Tiedemann. She's like, no, my great-grandfather was Hannes Tiedemann. He built this house. She's younger than me. Hannes Tiedemann's great-grandkids are in their 80s and 90s. And I'm like, I think you're a little young. And she's like, nope, he built this house. I'm like, well, hold on, time out. Was his dad's name Paul? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, he's named after his great uncle. And she's like, what? I'm like, no. I'm like, was your dad Bill? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, oh my God. I'm like, no. I'm like, and you know what's funny though is we became friends on Facebook, and I'm like, kind of curious. I'm going through like some photos of her. I'm just kind of checking her out a little bit. And I'm like, and then I found a photo of her from when she was in grade school. And I'm like,
You're standing next to her or something?
no,
Oh,
this is,
these are like-
I have a photo of Emma Tiedemann, who is supposedly the girl in white that supposedly haunts the house. Oh God, she's a ringer for her. I'm like, oh my
So
God.
you need to get her on those ghost tours.
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh sure,
have
yeah,
her
yeah.
jump out.
Yeah, have her jump out and scare the
Yeah.
bejeebus out of. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Come on.
But it was really
I'm all
cool
in
though
if
because
you
she
need that.
looks.
Like I could pretend to be doing a tour, and like she could like jump through like a secret door or something, grab me and just like rip me back, and you could be like, "This isn't part of this tour. This isn't part of the tour." And like,
I'm like,
everyone
who the
runs.
heck is this? And then I suddenly get hit in the head with a hammer.
Who listens
What?
to the podcast now knows that.
Well,
So anyway, yeah. So Kim Tiedemann, yeah, she's a ringer for her great grandfather's first cousin. She's a ringer.
My ghost is, or my doppelganger is a ghost.
Yeah, there you go. My doppelganger haunts a house in Cleveland. Haunts the most haunted house in Cleveland. So,
well, I mean, now you
sorry,
got-
Kim,
you
if
got
I'm throwing you
excited.
under the bus here or something. It's not my intention.
No,
I'm throwing you out there like that, so I probably shouldn't have told
that's good.
Nah.
all your listeners that.
So-
but she's really cool, and as I understand, she's also a very accomplished guitar player too. So,
Nice.
yeah.
I see that you dialed it back. You lived there and you said supposedly haunted.
Well,
did, quote, unquote.
my belief doesn't mean it's true. What I've seen happen, what has happened to me,
Exactly, guys.
is not proof. So,
Oh,
I
but
had to
give us.
sneak one in on you guys. I'm sorry. That was-
no, it's a good call. No, you're right, because I mean, I could sit here and tell you about everything that has happened to me in the house.
Give us
what
one-
has happened in the house.
I wanna
Doesn't
hear
mean
too-
it's haunted.
By the way, I was
because
teasing
you
these
haven't
guys. I feel really bad.
witnessed it.
I was teasing these guys with that little quip, not you. I
But,
swear.
but you
Yeah,
don't
No, it's
think there's a
okay,
spiritual
please,
realm at
it's-
all, right?
it's all right.
Just,
Yeah, if we could go there right now.
Sure, let's go
I
there.
wouldn't say
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I believe in any kind of spiritual realm.
okay.
But I am super excited. Listen, I said this before, where I want you guys to be true. I would love it if I died and I went to this paradise and all my dead family members were there to greet me and I was drinking beer.
And you could only look in the gate. You can't go in.
You, right, George, you messed up, man. We were trying to tell you through the podcast.
Yeah.
You literally,
I'll throw you a beer.
George's eyes, yeah, right.
And yet he never shows up for the Proving the Spiritual episodes.
Jesus, make some more wine.
But I hope it is true. I would love it. I would love it. to be haunted.
but also it's also good to keep an open mind about everything though, and that includes keeping an open mind of skepticism. That's terrific because I really keep an open mind as far as one aspect, but also the other, because there are probably things, ideas that we've never even considered yet that somebody could throw at us that is even beyond any scope that we've ever even imagined. Absolutely. Now, me telling you, and I love to tell everyone this because just me telling you about my own experiences doesn't mean that it's not proof because you didn't witness them. I could tell you it's haunted till I'm blue in the face, but you didn't see it.
Yeah, no, I see. What
Anyone else can tell me that, and the same thing. So,
But we would like to know from your perspective the things that have happened.
okay, so I
yeah.
in the last
Oh,
couple
yeah.
in the last couple of years, I started keeping a little bit of a journal. And there, it's a shop. I think it's called October's now, and it's right around the corner from what used to be Goddess Blessed. Now it's called the New Moon over in Lakewood. And I bought a paperback book of the handbook for the recently deceased from Beetlejuice. It's a notebook. It's all it is. It's just a notebook. It's a paper, and it looks really cool on my shelf. So I started using it as a notebook of writing down anything that might be construed as paranormal activity in the Franklin Castle. So I started this little journal a
Man,
couple
you might
of
as well
years ago.
continue your studies in real time.
Why not?
then
So I
when
write
you-
down the day of the week, the date, the year, and then the time. And if it's worth noting, and this is everything from the light dimmed over there for about 5 seconds and then came back on. None of the other lights in the house or all the lights in this part of the room went out at the same time. And then the lights in this part of the house stayed on. I don't know what's going on. The house shook. That's an interesting one. Or I heard someone talking in the next room. I went, and when I walked in, there was nobody there. This is one that really blows my mind. Was about a year and a half ago. I woke up to someone boom, 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 running up the stairs outside the living room. There's a great staircase that goes up the side of the house from the side entrance. And the house is being worked on by an Amish family, an Amish crew working on it. And I figured, okay, well, Freeman Detweiler, he's the head architect or head carpenter on the project. He's apprenticing his son, who at the time was 15, Isaiah. I thought it was Isaiah running up the stairs, Amish fella. And I'm like, oh gosh, he's waking me up. And then I hear boom, 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 running down the stairs, accompanied by little giggling running down. I'm like, what is that? Bring your whole family to work day or something? What is this? Well, okay, he's got a large family, and Isaiah's the oldest, and he's got a number of younger children. And I'm like, oh, okay, he comes over with his family, and they all stay at the house on occasion. They're going to be there in a few weeks. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm awake at this point. I'm like, all right, and I'm just gonna go ask Freeman, hey, can you ask kids just keep it down? I'm still asleep, it's still kind of early. And I open up the door and I walk out into the hall where the stairs are, and the lights in the hallway are on motion sensors, so that the light comes on.
Oh.
And I'm like, well,
it wasn't on before.
No,
It
no,
should've been on already.
they're on motion sensors.
Okay.
So I'm like, it had been a moment, and I'm like,